Okay, so we are now officially at that point where when it comes to our coverage over Operation Zero Tolerance, we're not really going to sit down and talk a lot about Cable nor really X-Force either. We're now going to shift our focus mainly on the X-Men, Wolverine, and also Generation X for the second half of Operation Zero Tolerance. Now, with that being said, we're also kind of getting into the idea of new characters being introduced in the middle of this event, especially when it came to X-Men issue number 66. Because in the last chapter for issue number 65, we were introduced to a bunch of different random people kind of expressing how they truly felt about the idea of Bastion going after mutants. You have some folks out there who hated the idea. You have some folks out there who loved the idea. But you had a couple of panels focused on one character who was a nurse, Nurse Reyes. Now, guys, real quickly, there are some characters in X-Men comics I kind of feel like that get forgotten about over time because there are so many different X-Men characters. And for me personally, she's one of those characters. Now, it's not me saying like she's a bad character, just that there are so many other characters out there in the world of X-Men comics that she kind of got put on the back burner. But the thing was, when we saw her, it was really her kind of expressing the idea that, yeah, what Bastion is doing is correct. Somebody should have gone after the X-Men, but also gone after mutants across the world as well. But this kind of shifts over to the idea where you do have this patient come in. And so for her being the nurse, it's her goal and her team's goal to help to the man's life. Now, after a few pages, we see that she wasn't really able to go out of her way to save this man's life. And so for her, she has to call it. Now, while you do have her and her team calling the death of this random patient, she comes to find out that this guy is not really just a random patient, that in reality, he is a prime sentinel. And the thing is, he was sent here to go after a mutant that was hiding in this hospital. And that would be Nurse Reyes. And you see, for Nurse Reyes, she has the ability to put up these shields around her body as a way to protect her. Now, we get the idea that she knew she was a mutant. And matter of fact, somebody came to her early on in her life wanting to help her. We already know that would be Charles Xavier. But for Reyes here, it's now her trying her best to basically survive fighting against this prime sentinel, and she's barely able to hold on. Now, in the last chapter, we had also talked about the idea that you had a few X-Men characters out there who weren't captured by Bastion, one of them being, of course, Iceman. And so for Iceman, it's him coming out of his way to help Dr. Reyes. Now, when it comes to Dr. Reyes, she does inform us that when it came to Charles Xavier, he did promise her, like, hey, listen, I'll make sure, like, you're not really involved in the whole idea of, you know, being the X-Men, because for Charles Xavier, he wanted her to join the X-Men, but she said no. But he also offered the idea of protecting her. But the problem is, Charles Xavier is no longer around. The dude got arrested right after Onslaught. But on top of that, when it came to Bastion, he was able to access the files of Cerebro. And so with him doing that, he was able to locate different mutants that Charles had found in the past while using Cerebro. Now for Iceman, he's kind of like, listen, Reyes, I'm pretty sure that when it came to Charles Xavier, he did really promise you that. And he really did try his best to make sure that you were well protected. But the thing is, Xavier's gone. And this is bigger than Xavier, bigger than the X-Men. Like, this guy Bastion is going after the entire mutant race across the globe. And so it's Bobby right now saying, like, we need to work together if we're going to be able to help save all the mutants across the world. And so you do have Reyes aside to join Iceman's side. And we also learn here that the reason why Dr. Reyes had basically decided to become a doctor is because when it came to her father, he had died right in front of her. And so with his death, it kind of put her on that track of becoming a doctor, being able to help out other people who are possibly in need. But getting over to Bastion as a way to close on this chapter, you have Bastion wanting to gloat about the idea that he was able to get his hands on 4 of the mutants that belongs to Charles Xavier X-Men: Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, and also Wolverine. Now, let's not forget that after Onslaught, we're kind of playing around with this possibility that Charles Xavier no longer has the ability to access his powers at the moment. But at the same time, even if he did have his powers, for some strange reason, he's not really able to use his powers against Bastion like he wants to, because for some strange reason, it seems like Bastion does not have an actual mind. But now we have to switch over to Generation X. Now, we're going to cover issue number 28. And here's the thing, because I found this kind of weird. You see, for issue number 28, it's not really part of most people's reading order when it comes to Operation Zero Tolerance. But issue number 27 is, and also issue number 29. So like, I don't know why this issue is left off, but here's the thing, because we're going to go ahead and just sit down and record this issue as well as part of our coverage over Operation Zero Tolerance. Now, issue number 28 really does kind of pick up our last few videos had left off at when it came to Generation X, because remember, in issue number 25, you have Black Tom being able to attack the school of Charles Xavier, going after Banshee, but you also have Black Tom being able to remove the kids and put them somewhere else. Now, the last time we saw them, the kids were just floating out in the middle of the sea. And we're kind of left to wonder if Banshee and Emma Frost would be able to find the kids in time to save their lives. This is where the story gets a tad bit weird. Because as we dive into the opening pages of issue number 28, we're picking up with Paige Guthrie. Now, for Paige Guthrie, as we all know, better known as Husk, she had been trying her best to prove that she's the best member of the team. But here's the thing, because when she wakes up, she's in a cabin, a ship cabin. And we're kind of left to believe the possibility that, okay, maybe out of nowhere a ship arrived and was able to save the kids who were just floating out there in the middle of the sea. But then she's confronted by Chamber. Now remember, when it came to Chamber, when his powers had manifested, the problem was that it basically blew a hole in his chest, but also got rid of the bottom part of his jaw. But right now, he looks completely normal. And matter of fact, you have him being able to speak normally now, but also being able to play guitar and sing to Husk. And that rather seems like, okay, there's something going on right now when it comes to our characters. And things get even crazier because we now shift over to Sync. And for Sync, apparently, on that same ship, he was able to open up this daycare for different kids in the area. Now, he's also there with Jubilee. This right here really proves that for Sync, he does have feelings for Jubilee, but let's not forget, Jubilee is not there. And the reason why, because when it came to issue number 25, Jubilee was able to get away from Black Tom, but be saved by Bastion, unfortunately. And so currently right now, she's a prisoner for Bastion. And so to see her here, we already know this cannot be real. There's something going on here at the moment. And that trend continues because as we do shift over to Monet, better known as M, it's right now her being able to have lunch with her brother Implate. And let's not forget, for Implate, he was the main bad guy for Generation X. But right now we see him looking completely normal. And the two of them are able to have some time with one another, but continuing to act normal. But here's the thing, because for Implate, he does point out that this part right here is part of Monet's fantasy. And so it kind of left to believe that somebody is being able to bring these characters' wishes to life. Now, there is one character at the moment who's not been given his fantasy. That sounds so weird to say. But anyways, though, that would be Skin. And right now, he's completely normal, but he's chained up at the moment. And we're kind of left to wonder, like, why in the world is Skin chained up here at the moment right now? Now, for a brief moment, we have to shift over to, well, Jubilee, because like I said earlier, she was captured by Bastion. Here's the thing, because we see Jubilee at the moment right now being confronted by Darla. Now, for Darla, she has been working for Bastion the entire time in Operation Zero Tolerance. And so at first, it kind of seemed like she was a minor character, but in almost every single issue that she had appeared in Generation X, she became more and more important, to the point where she feels really bad about the idea of what Bastion is doing to Jubilee. But she also wants to make sure that Jubilee is well fed. The problem is that for Jubilee, she knows that Darla works for Bastion, the man right now who's trying to hunt down mutants across the entire world at the moment. Now, I want to go ahead and shift back over to Skin. Here's the reason why, because for Skin at the moment, he's being confronted by, Glorian. I almost said Gideon, by Glorian. Now, when it comes to Glorian, he has this ability to bring people's dreams and fantasies to life. Now, I'm not going to sit down and try to explain the whole idea of this character's backstory, because he's not really important for the overall event of Operation Zero Tolerance, but he is the reason why right now for our heroes, they're all being able to live in this fantasy world at the moment. And the reason why Skin is not because Skin had declined his offer. And here's the reason why, because for Skin, he wants to teach Glorian a lesson. It's him saying that even though you are able to bring people's dreams and fantasies to life, you need to understand that their dreams, their fantasies, does not make them who they are. Like for Husk, for example. For Husk, even though she loves the idea of having someone in her corner like Chamber, she also hates the idea of being taken care of all the time, being cuddled all the time. She's a very independent woman. And so for Skin, is him saying, like, even though I know I am butt ugly and I wish I had the chance to be normal again, I understand that this is my life now as this person right here, better known as Skin. And so once you have Gideon realize that he's not really able to give Skin the one kind of fantasy he always wanted, it's also still Gideon trying to give Skin at least one wish. And that wish at the moment is to go back home. Now, at that time, he was not thinking of going back home to the school of Charles Xavier. He was thinking about going home to his hometown, and that would be LA. But he was also dreaming about making sure that him and his friends were also safe again. And so you had Glorian go out of his way to teleport Skin and the rest of the members of Generation X over to LA, minus for Jubilee, who's right now still a prisoner for, Bastion. Now, there is this backup story that Marvel technically did as a way to kind of bridge this issue into the idea of Operation Zero Tolerance. And the reason why I'm saying that, because we do pick up with Banshee and Emma Frost, who are right now trying their best to locate their missing students. And when it comes to Banshee, when it comes to Emma Frost, she looks into the mind of Banshee to kind of see where this island that he had brought up in the previous video, where he believes the kids could possibly be at when it came to Black Tom taking the kids away from them, because he believes the kids are currently at Krakoa. Now, here's the thing, because back at this time in Marvel Comics, Krakoa was like a dangerous thing for the X-Men. Like, thinking like a giant-sized X-Men #1, you had the X-Men freak out anytime that word was brought up. Now, in current time, when it comes to Krakoa, it's not really a huge bad thing anymore. But anyways, for Banshee, he remembers a time where you had the second X-Men team go out of their way with Cyclops to the first X-Men team on Krakoa. And so he still believes in the idea that there's a possibility the kids are there. Now, this kind of leads into a moment where you have Banshee kind of wonder, like, if the kids' lives would be better if they weren't really around Emma Frost and also Banshee, like if they never heard of Charles Xavier's school. But the thing is, for Emma Frost, she does not believe that at all, she says, but at the same time we see her crying, which means no, she does believe that. But also she's kind of wondering, like, if the kids are dead, because For me, this is a callback to the idea that when it came to Emma Frost, she had another group of students in the past, better known as the Hellions, that came out around the same time as the New Mutants. By this point in Marvel Comics, most of the Hellions are dead. And Emma Frost, she was in a coma. So she was not really able to protect her last few students in the past. And so now she's kind of worried about the idea this group right here could possibly be dead. But you also have Banshee give her a hug. Now, for a brief moment, it kind of seemed like the two characters were getting somewhat close, right? Like, oh, will Banshee end up with Emma Frost? Because that would be pretty wild. But anyways, you then have the two characters get a call on the radio. Now, technically, this issue right here does take place at the exact same time where you had the X-Men get attacked by Bastion and the different operatives of Operation Zero Tolerance that led the X-Men to that event right there. And so when they get that call, they're kind of like, oh my God, we have to go now and help the X-Men. Now, as we dive into issue number 29 is when we actually get into the idea of like Generation X being part of Operation Zero Tolerance, because now we're picking up with, well, Skin right now having this knife to his neck. And remember, for the kids, they just got to LA because LA is a home to, well, Skin. And so we kind of have to wonder, why in the world is Skin's life in danger already just after he just got back home with all his friends? And so you do have the story basically switch over to the past, kind of show us what led into that moment. Now, with our young heroes being in LA, you do have most of the group right now just taking it in because they love the idea of being in LA because they never been there before. Now for Skin, of course, he has been there because this right here is his hometown, but we also see that for Monet, she's kind of acting different. She's being more friendly, being more open to the different members of the team. And it's also kind of giving us a little more teen drama at the moment because, of course, for Husk, let's not forget, her and Chamber almost got together, but you have Chamber not really showing Husk that she is somebody who can understand, even though he does look different, she still cares for him. But at the same time, he also needs to know that she is very independent. And so she hates the idea of having someone just always there taking care of her. But anyways, though, it's just the kids right now taking everything in. Now, can I say that I realized the last few issues for Sync, his character kind of feels just left out. Like, ever since you had Implate being able to take over his body, that was the last time Sync became important in the entire series so far for Generation X. But anyways, though, you did have Skin say, hey, let's go ahead and head over to my cousin's house to have Sword to stay, but also have Sword to go to contact Banshee and Emma Frost. Now, for Emma Frost and also Banshee, and also really Penance as well, they're currently in hiding at the moment. Now, at the end of the last chapter, we had saw like they were answering the call from the X-Men when needed help when it came to the different operatives of Operation Zero Tolerance going after them at the very beginning of this crossover. But by this point, when they had arrived there, the X-Men were already captured by Bastion. And so for Banshee, Emma Frost, and Penance, they're trying their best to stay undercover. Here's the problem with that, though. Every single home that Emma Frost had across the nation is being currently watched by, well, different people that work for Bastion. So for those three characters, they're trying their best to figure out what is their actual next move. Now, they believe there's still one location left to go to for the time being as a way to hide from Bastion, but also a way to regroup and find their missing students. And really, as we do switch back over to the students, we see that they did arrive at Skin's cousin's house named Gil. Now, when it comes to Gil, he's not really important for the overall X-Men universe. Just a character who is related to Skin, and that's really it. But you do have Gil allowing the kids to, be able to stay there, to have some time to relax. This is where things go south very quickly. And the reason why, because now we jump to the present moment, right? Where it's really more of us seeing why Skin at the very beginning of this chapter had a knife towards his throat because of Torres. Now, we had talked about her before. Torres is a leader of a gang, but on top of that, when it came to Skin, most people in his area, they believed that he was dead. And so there are only a select few people who actually knew that he was alive. Torres was not one of them. She had no idea that he was still alive, well, until a few weeks ago when she was contacted by Operation Zero Tolerance. And so once she heard that Skin was alive, and there was a slim chance that Skin might come back to LA, she knew where Skin would be at. His cousin's house. And so it's her now telling Skin and the rest of the group, like, hey, listen, so I told them where you would be at. And so outside the house, yes, you know it, there are prime sentinels just ready to go once again. So really, when it comes to this issue right here, most of the pages are really more of us just seeing the X-Men, or sorry, not X-Men, Generation X on the run, because right after you didn't have the Prime Sentinels go out of their way to blow up the entire house that belonged to Gil, the cousin to Skin there, well, you didn't have everyone begin to run away. We also learned that for Torres, they say she's also a mutant as well, which also means she has to go. And so you see all the characters just running for their lives across the city and really having no choice but to go ahead and go into the sewers. Now, for Banshee and Emma Frost, they did find somewhere to hide for the moment, but while you had those characters hiding, they're then confronted by DOA. Now, for DOA, he works for Emplate. Let's not forget, Emplate is the brother. He is the brother to Monet. But at the same time, though, when it comes to Emplate, he's the #1 bad guy for Generation X. And so he has sent DOA to make a deal with Banshee and Emma Frost, where technically he says, listen, I will go out of my way to find Monet and your missing students for you as well, but you have to give me something in return. And what he wants in return is, of course, Penance, because he had Penance under his possession for the beginning parts of this series, but of course you had our young heroes being able to get her away from him, but he still wants her back. And so he said, listen, I'll give you Monet and the rest of your missing students, but I need her back. And so we're kind of left to wonder, is there a possibility they're going to make that deal? Now, the last thing I do want to talk about is the character known as Daria. Now, I realized earlier I called her Darla, but when it comes to Daria, she is this young girl that had been working for Bastion. Now, here's the thing, because for Daria, she tried her best to take care of Jubilee. Jubilee attacks her and tries to escape. The thing is, Daria powers activate. Now, here's the thing though. Is she a mutant? Or is she a Prime Sentinel? Or is she just some person that has some kind of powers? Who knows? Both characters right now are basically confused. But it's also Jubilee wanting to stay with Daria until they're able to figure things out. But either way, for our young heroes right now, they're now part of Operation Zero Tolerance. So the second half of our coverage is going to be the X-Men, Wolverine, and also Generation X. But with that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.